Greetings everyone, welcome back to Blade Bias. I completely forgot to do the Squiddy AL video and also technically the Squiddy WH video, so I'm going to combine them into one video because the truth is I don't have a lot to say about this guy. So I spent a week with the two newest members of the Squiddy family. Here's what I learned, and actually I spent more than a week because I've had the Squiddy AL for almost 3 weeks now. First of all, we'll get the Squiddy WH out of the way. It's a Squiddy B. It's a Squiddy B with better grip. That's really all I can say about it. I really have a hard time getting like super excited about the flipping experience of this thing because it feels almost exactly the same as the previous members of the Squiddy family, most notably the Squiddy B, which, you know, has that little bit of handle bias, but otherwise feels fairly neutral for plastic with the nose weight. This feels very similar. Maybe it might just be a touch less handle bias because it feels a little less wobbly to me overall, but it's such a small difference that it also feels a tiny bit lighter, I guess, but it's such a small difference that I think it's just placebo, because I do like the design better. I think this is the best Squiddy, plastic Squiddy model, because you get the design and you get the grip. I would like to see a little bit more put into the grip because it's not deep enough for me to really feel anything from it. And then the jimping is good, but I think it could be improved maybe just a little bit, because most of the grip still is coming from the finish of the plastic that they use, the Delrin, I believe it is, which is nice. And I guess it would be a tiny bit less handle bias because they did take material, out of the handles to make this pattern and everything. But it's a Squiddy B. Like, if you have a Squiddy B and the grip is fine for you, I don't really see any reason to upgrade to this. If you don't have a Squiddy B, I would go for this if you're willing to pay the premium. Although the Squiddy B is also, what, like $30 cheaper, so if you like the design, go for it. If you don't really care about the design, the Squiddy B exists. They flip almost identically. There's really not much else to say than that. The Squiddy AL, on the other hand, has been an experience for me. This balisong has so much good and so much bad in my eyes that I almost considered making a full video on my main channel for it because I had so much to say. So this video is going to be a little more brief than I would like to be. I'm not going to go into as much detail because this is the sort of balisong that I would want to sit down and script out an entire video for. But I will give you guys the spark notes of my thoughts on my few weeks that I've had the Squiddy for. This is one of the most premium balisongs in the price point. I do mean that genuinely. Squid's feel in the hand remains unmatched by anyone in the sub $100 space. Even Nibali's with the new Canyon that I just unboxed. This feels good, but I think it's the bead blast that they use. It just doesn't match the feel of the Squiddy AL. The Squiddy AL feels, if you just put this in someone's hands and blindfolded them, I would guess a $150 balisong minimum. The finish on it is amazing. The texture is beautifully machined. The choice to use raw aluminum, I think, does a lot to make it feel more premium rather than that shitty bead blast that so many companies use that I just despise. It feels so premium. I love it. Every time I picked this up the first week that I had it, I was like, oh my gosh, this feels better than even something. It feels better than the Orion for sure. It just feels premium. And that in and of itself is enough for me to be super into the Squiddy AL. So that's a good, but I said this is very conflicting balisong, so let's go bounce back and forth between good and bad. That's the good. The bad is that the balance is wacky as all hell. I have been flipping my Slift T the entire month of February for an upcoming project. And any time that I flipped the Squiddy AL for any longer than maybe half an hour, I found myself struggling to flip the Slift T as well when I came back to it. Because The distribution of this thing is so wild, and it doesn't carry a ton of momentum. It doesn't have a lot of tip weight. Like, it still flips. I would say it objectively flips. And I think it flips okay. The problem is that the balance is so wonky sometimes that it just doesn't really feel like anything else. And it can make you feel a little bit, I don't know, it can make you feel like you can't flip anymore when you go back to something else, which I experience quite a bit getting used to the Squiddy AL and then going back to something else in my collection. Because there's not a lot of tip weight and there's not a lot of momentum, which results in it feeling just kind of light and weird. Fans are pretty wobbly. You can tell that the tip has a lot of trouble staying down. I can't even put my finger on it. This is why I would have to script out a video, because sitting down unscripted, or I guess standing up in this case unscripted, is so difficult to do. Coming up with 10 minutes, 15 minutes of a video topic on the spot and talking about your thoughts on a knife are usually easy, but when you have a more complex knife like this, I would want to sit down for an hour to writing out different things that I want to talk about, the balance, bouncing off ideas off the wall. So I can't really get more in depth than that, other than just saying it's weird, but it ultimately still flips. And that weirdness is compounded by the fact that it's definitely handle bias, but it struggles with chaplains. The chaplains are very Volpy, where you have to do big circles if you want them to stick, otherwise they won't. Which is a little annoying. I think it's better than the Volp, especially without the eye weights that we'll get into later, but it's fine. I can live with it, but I would prefer if it held chaplains a little more. Speaking of the eye weights, that's another bad for me, because the eye weights add a lot of tip weight and it feels good. The eye weights make a considerable difference, like a lot more than I was expecting. For these tiny little screws, they change the balance quite a bit. It feels much more neutral. I actually love the balance with the eye weights in, but it kills chaplains. I was walking on campus trying to chaplain the thing, and I dropped it so many times over and over and over again. Or I would do like I failed, the combo that I always do this? I failed at that walking down campus with this thing because I had the eye weights in and the thing just flew off my hands I failed this with the Squiddy AL. You know how often I do that? I don't fail that. So I took the eye weights out, and while the balance isn't my favorite with them out, I would take the slightly more stable chaplains. So that's the bad. But the good of the eye weights is that they're there and they make a considerable difference. Like, if you think that this doesn't have enough tip weight, the eye weights will help with that. And I think those tiny little screws do so much more than I think most people could ever really guess that they would. So that's the good. Another bad, pinsless 6061 aluminum. Not the most durable thing in the world. There's dents all over this thing, including on the pin area, which, if you dent it in the right spot, could affect your handle gap. I've seen a lot of people's Squiddy ALs binding. I've seen people flipping them without washers outright. Granted, people are not being kind to their Squiddy AL, and I have not been kind to this, which is kind of where another good comes in. It's more durable than you would think. This thing's taken a ton of concrete drops, and it still holds up just fine. The finish doesn't really hide blemishes as much as I would like. I can see every single one on this thing. But it's held up even better than I thought for a 6061 all aluminum pinsless balisong. Like, way better. And I think it deserves credit for that. But the pinsless contributes to my next bad, which is the sound. The sound, it's loud. I bought this because I was hoping it'd be a little quieter than my Orion. It's loud. And if you want to put oil in it, which will considerably quiet it down, the oil just leaks out of the pivots and it stains everything. Do you see all these little black dots on my blanket? That's all from this thing landing pivot down and just staining my blanket. It's really annoying and I need to wash it, but you either stain everything that you put it in, which, considering I store this thing in a white bag, I didn't really want to do that often. To be fair, this might not actually be from the Squiddy AL, but it is funny. But the washer only design, I don't know, maybe it's leaking out because the pivots don't fit correctly, or I don't have that problem on any other balisong though, just this one so far. So that's a negative. But speaking of the washer system, that's a huge positive in my opinion. I have never felt such good washers in a balisong. This thing is incredible. Washer only balisong, 6061 aluminum, dropped on concrete multiple times. I haven't touched it with a screwdriver. No tap. That is insane. $85 for pivots that are washer only, that if you were to hand this thing to me, I would guess it had bushings, unironically. The tolerances are too good. It's been beat too much. It still doesn't have tap, and it feels so smooth. It is incredible. I have to give Squid so much credit in their implementation of washers here. And I'm sure if I beat it more, it would get tap. But like the fact that this has taken concrete drops, looks as rough as it does, is only on washers and still feels smooth with no tap is incredible. And the screws don't come loose every 5 seconds, which is the reason I hate washers so much. I despise how much washers come loose and have, like, it's so annoying. I don't care about the tap. I care about the screws coming loose every 5 seconds. Haven't had that issue on this thing. It's amazing. And I'm not going to get into anything else bad because I can't. Oh, no, here's a quick little bad for you. The bite handle indicator doesn't do much. Like, obviously I can feel it a tiny bit, but if I was really in a flow state trying to do tricks, I probably wouldn't notice it sometimes because you get really focused sometimes. And other bite handle indicators, like the one on the Prisma especially, are enough to break you out of that flow state and tell you that you messed up. This I could see myself ignoring. It's a problem that I'm definitely going to see myself having on the Canyon, because the Canyon has this part that's like actually comfortably Chaplinable for me. So if you get in a flow state, especially because this is a symmetrical design, I don't really see myself correcting myself without looking at the bite handle indicator. But I don't know, man. This is such an impressive balisong to me. It's one of the most conflicting balisongs I've talked about on Blade Bias. I'm sure you can tell because I'm still passionately talking, 10, 15 minutes later about this thing, and I still could get into more. Like the fact that it is gorgeous. I just blinded myself. Oh my God. I'm closing my eyes right now. I can see the Squiddy AL. I see it. It's purple and it's okay. I can see the textures in the blade. Oh, that really hurt. But it's beautiful. It reflects light so well. It shows the scratches, and it's non-threatening, and you can flip it in public because there's a smiley face. So if someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, is that a knife?" I can show them I just have a goofy little guy. There's so much to say about this balisong. It's one of the most conflicting things I've talked about on this channel, and yet one of the most impressive. Because for $85, dude, even with all my complaints with it, I don't even think I could say that there's anything else that I would say has this experience. Because yes, the Orion flips better. Any day I would pick the Orion. But the Squiddy AL just has a feel, a premium feel, a flipping experience, an experience overall that's unmatched by anything else I have tried in the sub $100 range. The Orion 1.5 included. It's a fantastic balisong, but it doesn't have that Squid level of polish. And it doesn't have that, honestly, pretty fun balance. As much as I don't like, if another balisong flipped like this, I'd probably sell it after I made videos on it. But I can't bring myself to sell this thing. It's fun. It feels like it's supposed to flip like that because it almost feels like a toy in some ways because it's so non-threatening. So I can excuse the fact that it's not perfect in every way in the flipping experience because everything else just feels so premium. The washers, the finish, the look, the feel in the hand. There's so much to love. There's so much to dislike. It's such a conflicting balisong for me, which is why I wanted to make a main channel video on it. I got so caught up in what I was going to say about this thing that I forgot to say it because I forgot to make the video in the first place. So now it's out. People can stop asking me about it. That was my more than 1 week with the Squiddy AL and the Squiddy WH, which this thing is designed. It's a really cool design. Just, the flipping experience is a Squiddy B, so there's not much to say there. But man, never have I felt so conflicted about a balisong that I love so much. Easy recommendation on the Squiddy AL for me. I think it flips so much better than the Swordfish. I would pick it over a Triton, over a Mako. I would pick it over most of Squid's lineup up to the Squid Trainer, to be completely honest with you. I think this thing is probably their best starter balisong, their best value proposition, all of that stuff. Assuming you're not going to go all DJI-less Pyro and just slam your balisong into the ground, this thing is fantastic. Treat it with a little bit of respect. Maybe it's not the best public beater in the world, but if you treat it with a little bit of respect, I don't really think there's any other kind of value you can get like this in the community. Granted, like I said, the Orion flips a little better and all that, but just the feel of the Squiddy AL is something special. So I hope I gave you into a window. I hope I gave you a little window into what I think about the Squiddy AL. I wouldn't get your hopes up on a Squiddy AL main channel review anytime soon, but I would really like to script it out and do it. Maybe I'll just speed run it over spring break. We'll see. But man, I'm sorry if this was a 20-minute video, but there's just so much stuff to talk about with this thing. And I would expect to see it in future videos. I would expect changes to my opinions on all of that. Because honestly, every time I flip it, I have a different opinion on it. So, yeah. My new public flipper, possibly one of my new favorite things, sub $100. Just for the pure fact that it's the ultimate package. It doesn't flip the best. Like, the Orion 1.5 demolishes it in the balance perspective. But everything else, I think I would take this. I don't know. I'm not normally a squid shill, but man, this guy's... It's that smile. That damned smile. Alright, I'm going to stop ranting now. I'm going to go play Helldivers 2 with my friend. And Gigantic. I don't know. The Gigantic beta ended. Go check out Gigantic. I might do a bonus bias. You guys want to see a bonus bias on a video game? If you made it this far, comment your opinion on a bonus bias on a video game. So that way I know you watched all the way to the end. Because that's pretty cool. If you watched all this stuff and you heard me rant this long, I appreciate you. I'm going to go now. Okay, goodbye. God, that damn smile.